Welcome to the woods. It's a very damp July. I don't think I've ever known as much rain to fall in what is supposed to be our hottest month. But we soldier on. These things are sent to try us. Now, this might be a little bit rambling, and the reason for that is I was going to talk about one thing, but a couple of things happened over the last couple of days, and I've decided to have a chat with you about problems, issues. A couple of days ago, I put a post on my Telegram page saying we've got a problem, and I was talking about the introduction of digital currencies and digital IDs and why that's an issue. And this morning, on the Woodlander Initiative website, I put a post that started about talking about problems and how some people, not everyone, but people who have just become aware or have become aware in the last 2 or 3 years of some of the major problems that are facing us as we move forward. And there are lots of problems, and how you deal with problems that you're faced with is going to impact on where you end up. And that's the same if those problems are societal, things that are happening that seemingly are outside of your control, or if those problems are in your private or personal life, issues that you're facing. And I dare say there's some people watching this that are having problems. Sometimes it's more than one, there are several. Sometimes there are a lot of issues that we need to face. And when there are a lot, it can seem overwhelming. Like there's no way to tackle the situation. And I've seen this a lot with people who have become aware of the societal situation in the last 2 to 3 years. They'll start learning about one thing, go down that rabbit hole and learn about another, and how that is linked to yet another, and how things like the migration problem we have in this country is linked to the digital ID problem, and the Agenda 30 and the 20-minute neighbourhoods, and suddenly all of these issues and all of these problems become so large that there's nothing you can do. You feel powerless against such an overwhelming avalanche of problems and issues. And it can get like that in our private lives. I've seen this usually with money, where people have one problem, a lack of income, and they borrow money, and then they're worried about how they're going to pay that money back, and they borrow from this, won't pay this bill, and will pay that bill, and a short time thereafter that the problem seems so vast and so varied that there doesn't seem to be a way out, and it doesn't seem to be something they could deal with. And it's important that we understand that we can deal with these problems, that it doesn't help us to hide from them, to turn away from them, to hope that they will just go away. And they don't need to be dealt with all at the same time, even if they're interconnected. It's important that we understand how many there are and what issues are facing us, and we can list those, and you can write them down, or you can use your phone to make a list, and it can get quite long. Again, even if those problems are in your private life, or problems you see in society around you, it can help to list them. It can help to see where they're linked, how they all intertwine. But separately, when you make that list, it's possible to break it down into manageable pieces, into segments that you can do something about. And you might not be able to do it on your own, but usually there's people or organisations that are there to assist in a certain area. When you break it down, when you list all of those things and look at them individually, it becomes much easier. It's not as overwhelming, and you can tackle those problems one step at a time. And you can see how once you've resolved one, that it's possible to resolve another, and that usually when you resolve one, it will assist in resolving another. And I had a friend come up yesterday. I've known him a long time, 30 years, maybe longer. And he's going through some issues. And he doesn't know, or he didn't know, what to do or how to handle them, because they were varied and seemed impossible to deal with all at once. But we spent the day talking about what they were and things he could do, and some of those issues he could face. And when we broke them down into smaller, manageable areas, actually, it's not that difficult. It's easier to wrap your head around a single issue than it is a whole host of them. And it was the same with the post I put on the initiative website. And I pointed out that a lot of people that have become aware in the last 2-3 years learn so much so quickly that it leaves them in a state of bewilderment, of believing that there's nothing they can do, that the forces against them are so large and so powerful that it would be easier just to look the other way, to lie down, to admit defeat. And that is part of the plan. if you can attack people on many fronts, it does two things. It demoralizes. It also fractures your opponent, where people are tied up fighting one thing and ignore another. But if we look at the whole problem, if we list them down, and we're quite lucky, really, a lot of the things facing us have already been identified. There's already organisations fighting against them. There's already protests. It's important that we understand that a lot of these things are linked, and that it's no point in fighting just one and only one. There are other issues that will need to be addressed. And a good example of that would be there's no point focusing all of your time and all of your effort protesting the illegal migrants in hotels, even if the cost is running at over £8 million a day. It's a huge issue, and is receiving coverage in mainstream press, and it's something that even politicians are talking about, trying to solve, although I'm sure most of us are aware it's not really a problem they plan on solving. But I've gone off. Fighting just one battle whilst leaving others completely alone will still end up with us in the same situation. So we need to know all of them, and we need to work through that list. And we need to find answers that combat a lot of them all at once. So we can't concentrate on just protesting 20-minute neighbourhoods, or 24-hour surveillance, or the incoming digital currency, or the backdoor way they'll slide in a digital ID, or the online harms bill. And here I am giving you slowly a list of problems that we face. When we look at them together, it seems overwhelming. When we look at them together, it's possible to see how they are all linked, how they're designed to demoralize, how they're designed to control, how they're designed to fracture, how they're designed to leave us in a vulnerable position. So much as the same way we tackle problems in our private or personal life, by making a list, working through it, small parts at a time, but understanding that they all need attention. It is possible. It's possible to defeat all of those problems. There's not one problem that we cannot overcome. Because life should be a lot easier. It should be more joyful. It should be enjoyable. And we can't let these overwhelming problems and issues grind us down. Together, we can talk about them, we can discuss them, and we can solve them. And that's the important part. There's no point just looking at them. There's no point just looking at them and concentrating on them unless we're going to solve them. And it's the solving of those problems which is the key. So yes, they're varied. Yes, there's a lot of them, but we can break them down. We can tackle one at a time, and we can understand that we need to tackle all of them. And if we work together, we win. It's that simple. And if you can't think of a way round a problem, someone else can. Someone else has already been through it, and they've got the answer. Together, we have the knowledge, the skill, the determination, the will to defeat any problem facing us. So, if things start to get you down, if sometimes you think there's nothing that can be done, it can, and we will. There's so many groups fighting for a better future. There's so many people willing to help. So no matter what your problem, or what problem you've identified, we can beat it. And it's important that we know that. It's important for those people who find it hard to see a light at the end of a tunnel. Because that light isn't an oncoming train. That light is all of us coming to help, to show the way. Have a good day, you lot. And remember, there's not a problem out there that we can't solve. There's not a problem out there that we won't solve. Together. I'll speak to you soon.